Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar this morning on self-assessment, finding the right pricing strategy. We are just going to give everyone a few minutes to join. So if you want to get up and grab a quick drink of water, please feel free. We'll just wait for the numbers to kind of settle down. I think we've got quite a lot of registrants today, which is always really lovely to see, lovely to be joined by everyone. So we will just wait for those numbers to kind of plateau a little bit before we get started in the discussion. So yeah, if you want to jump up and run to the toilet or whatever, you got a few minutes to do so before we get started. Lovely to see everyone saying hello in the chat box. We've got Stuart on our chat box today, so yeah, good morning. Let us know where you're joining from. I am in sunny London today, which is actually, it's looking beautiful. I can see the main road outside my window, and yeah, it's nice and sunny. If you've just joined us, like I say, we're just waiting for the numbers to settle down a little bit. We'll get started in a minute or so. Good morning from Manchester, Northampton, Scottish Borders, lovely, Plymouth. Gosh, you're all over today, which is great to see. Cool. So I think those numbers are just starting to settle down a little bit now. What I'll do is I'll go ahead and get started. And yeah, you can say hello to everyone. So like I say, welcome to our webinar this morning over here at FreeAgent. And today we're going to be talking about self-assessment and finding the right pricing strategy. So just a little bit of housekeeping for us today. So today's session will be recorded. I don't think I've ever been on a webinar where someone has not asked if it's going to be recorded. It will be. You'll be able to access it. If you're a partner, you can have a look at it in our practice portal. If you're not a partner, a recording will be sent to you. So not to worry if you have to jump off a little bit early, you're going to be able to catch up on it in retrospect. Please go ahead and use our Q&A box for any kind of specific questions you have. So any kind of specific queries, and then the chat is more just for a little bit of discussion. If you pop any questions in the Q&A box, then we will make sure that we pick them up at the end. Like I said before, we've got our lovely Stuart Leask joining us today. He's on our chat box, and he'll also be helping out in the Q&A box. So if there's any questions that he's maybe not getting back to, we'll just make sure we pick them up at the end as long as we've got time. I always just ask that we keep our chat box positive and kind of respectful. We've had a few webinars, unfortunately, we've had a few webinars where people have been a little bit rude to either our panelists or our hosts or whoever we've had on. So yeah, we just ask that like everyone's here to learn, and please just go ahead and keep it nice and respectful and positive. It's lovely to have you all here. So yeah, good vibes only. And then lastly, there will be some polls that we'll do throughout the webinar. It'd be lovely if you can participate in them. We'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions. If you do want a follow-up from one of our team to chat to you a little bit more about FreeAgent, get you a trial, there will be plenty of opportunities. So just keep an eye out for those polls when they come up. So just a little bit of background. I think we've got quite a lot of people here who maybe have not interacted with FreeAgent before, which is always lovely to see. Really nice that you've come along to our webinar today. So just a little bit of background about us. We are accounting and bookkeeping software. We focus more on the smaller end of the market, but certainly not only for the smaller end of the market in terms of small businesses. We are award winning. Last year at the ICB Luca Awards, we won Friendliest Software of the Year. Brilliant night. We're hoping to take home some more awards this year. And yeah, we have that unrivaled support, so really brilliant support team who are very knowledgeable. They all have an accounting background. Really just a brilliant support team, an amazing mobile app. Of course, we are also connected with NatWest. So because of that bank connection, we are able to give free licenses to anyone who banks with NatWest, RBS, Ulster Bank and Metal, which is a free online bank account as well. We're HMRC recognised and MTD compatible, so anyone who's thinking about the future and thinking about making tax digital for income tax and self-assessment, we are approved by HMRC for that as well. And you can file directly to HMRC via FreeAgent. We'll have a little demo at the end, so not to worry. If you've not seen the product before, I'm going to make sure I take you through it. But just some highlights about FreeAgent for you before we get started. So my name is Jem. I am a practice partnerships consultant here at FreeAgent. I've been at FreeAgent for 2.5 years now. Started out as an account manager, and I work with our accounting and bookkeeping partners, or I did, and now I focus more on the kind of product and software side of things. So primarily looking at the integrations that we have and helping us get really good relationships with others in the market, really just trying to expand our ecosystem as a product as much as possible. Today, I am joined by two lovely guests. So we've got Suzannah here. Suzannah, do you want to just go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Suzannah. I set up my practice, Sinclair Whelan Bookkeeping, about 14 years ago after qualifying and studying with the ICB. I'm based in Billericay in Essex. I'm a sole practitioner, and I offer all the usual services: bookkeeping, self-assessment, payroll, working mainly with small local businesses.
Perfect. And you forgot to add the part that you're a free agent expert.
And yeah, that as well.
Of course. And we're also joined by Chris today. Chris, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself as well?
Hi, yeah, my name's Chris. I founded and run Vision Accounting. We're an accounting practice based on the Isle of Wight. Much like Suzannah, I'm a free agent expert. So we work with sort of clients ranging from sort of your small sort of startup businesses through to sort of multi-million-pound turnover companies. So really good range. Obviously, we use FreeAgent for a multitude of clients across different sectors. So yeah, that's us really.
Leading the way in accountancy in the Isle of Wight is what you should have said. And a free agent expert, which I love to hear. Perfect. So Georgia, I'm just going to ask, my colleague Georgia here from our events team is also behind the scenes. Just to kick us off, I'd love to hear from our kind of audience today, just a little bit about, we're going to be talking a lot about pricing and how we value our services. And it'd be great to hear what your kind of key considerations are when you're pricing for self-assessment. So just kind of to kick off the conversation, to be honest with you, I'd love to hear about, you know, what you kind of consider. What are your main maybe concerns when it comes to that? Is it about competitors? Maybe it's about what value you can offer. Is it about your brand, your budget for the client? Is it about the technology? You know, what is it that kind of drives you when you're thinking about pricing? And we'll just wait for those numbers to go up a little bit. Yes, I'm seeing a lot about kind of value of your services to clients, and I think we're going to be speaking about that a lot today. Because although we're talking about pricing, it's not just pricing, is it? It's all about kind of what services you can offer and how you can really deliver as much value as possible to your clients. Estimated workload as well. I know that's going to be a big one when we're thinking about making tax digital, isn't it? Thinking about kind of how we can manage our workload in line with what we charge clients. Great. So I'm going to go ahead and end that poll. Any last minute votes, feel free to get them in. There we go. So I'd love to just revisit this in a little bit, but just kind of wanted to get the conversation started with that one. Because when we think about pricing as a whole, I know that Suzannah and Chris, we've discussed this before, but when we're thinking about pricing as a whole, it's not just pricing, is it? It's all about that value you can offer clients, like I say. So Chris, I'll start with you. Out of those kind of options, what do you think? What's one of your main considerations when you're thinking about pricing for self-assessment?
I think obviously you've got to consider obviously where you are based against your competitors as well, because I know people were mentioning there about their pricing and how that's going to affect how they sit against the people in their local area or the companies there having to benchmark themselves against pricing wise. I think that's a really key sort of area that you need to look at, because it is really important to know roughly, because obviously no one's ever going to know exactly what their competitors are charging, but you need to kind of have that confidence in yourself that you're in the ballpark and you're not grossly over estimating your pricing against your competitors, because obviously you'll lose a lot of business that way. But obviously, absolutely, based on the proposals and things that you send out across the year or across a given time, you'll get a really good feel for how you sit against your competitors pricing wise. And obviously there's a really good bit of investigation that you can do across people's websites and sort of speaking to clients and obviously reviewing sort of clients when they come on board and what they were paying elsewhere. Obviously those things are all sort of golden pieces of information that you can sort of take on board and use that to sort of build the picture as sort of time moves on.
Absolutely. And what about you, Suzannah? Do you think, because there's plenty of bookkeepers in the industry now, which we love to see, we really try and champion bookkeeping as like a career of choice here at FreeAgent. And do you think that that kind of competitor side of things, does that have a big influence on what you decide to do with your pricing?
It does, but I think it's really important to be aware there's a big disparity between the kind of services that are offered and the pricing that goes along with that. I mean, you do get people come to you who have seen an advert on Facebook, file your tax return for £99, and you think, well, what are you getting for that service? You're not going to get anything. You're providing the numbers. They're not doing any checks. They're not telling you what have you thought about claiming for this? Or you can't claim for that, or whatever, and things like capital allowances and stuff like that. And then the service which I will provide, which would be a full service with all the bookkeeping done, checking the paperwork, going through bank statements and making sure they've not missed anything.
Absolutely.
And obviously putting it onto software as well. So you're going to have a different price from someone who's offering the basic service. But Absolutely. Then along with that, you're building a relationship with the client, and you're offering more than just the compliance element of this is what you owe HMRC.
Yeah, absolutely. It encompasses a lot more than just filing a tax return or whatever it is. All of those things on paper that you can, quite easily tick off, and you would expect of an accountant or bookkeeper. But it's all about those kind of bells and whistles and what other value can you bring. I saw some people have already done this poll, so not to worry, you will have more opportunity to let us know if you are interested in becoming a FreeAgent partner. But just kind of wanted to kick off with that wee question, because I think a lot of people will be able to relate, and we'd love to hear in the chat box, are you thinking about the same considerations? Are there any that we've missed on there that maybe you don't, that you've not resonated with? But yeah, let us know. And yeah, there's just a poll going now if you want to hear more about becoming a FreeAgent partner before we get into our panelist discussion. So I'll let that poll run just for a minute or two, and then we can go ahead and get started on our panel. Great. I'm going to go ahead and end that poll just now. Any last minute votes, please go ahead and get them in. Like I say, we'll have more opportunities. If you do want us to follow up, then we will absolutely do so. So we've already touched on it a little bit for all of you about what your key considerations are. But what we see a lot of at FreeAgent are people who are just starting out in practice, either as an accountant or bookkeeper. And I think it's really hard to figure out how you price and where you kind of value your services. So what would your advice be to someone who's starting out in practice, kind of what they should consider when they're pricing their services? I know you've spoken about competitors, but how does that change when you're thinking about being really green to the business and maybe taking on kind of every and all client that's available to you? Is there anything in particular that you'd recommend considering? And Suzannah, I'll start off with you.
I think when you have a discovery call with a client, it's really important to go through a kind of a checklist of questions and find out exactly what they need, and because you quite often get it where someone will say, I need you to file my tax return. It's really simple, they'll say. And we've all heard that. And then you find out they've got foreign income, they've sold a property, or all these things on top of their little self-employment, really simple business. So it's really important to know what you're dealing with from the offset, and also ongoing. If you're only speaking to clients once a year, things can change within that year as well. So I try and have regular contact with my clients, and that way, when you're pricing with them, if you break it down so that you're including everything within that, if things change and they're asking for an additional service one year, you can add that on, and it's not a shock to them, because they know that it's not just a fee that covers everything they could possibly be dealing with.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chris, what about you? Because obviously you started your own practice, but you were working for another company, am I right, for a while? So how did you approach things when you were first starting out? And maybe what would you have changed if you could go back and do it again? Because I'm sure that there's lots of those. We've all got them, right?
Yeah, I think so much comes with experience. I think that's the most important thing to remember. That you can't beat yourself up if you. I think we're all guilty of when we first start out. Like you say, you mentioned it perfectly. Just taking all the clients that come for sort of whatever fee that may entail, and obviously to start with, you're not particularly confident in your own product. Effectively, you haven't sort of polished off all the edges of where you need to be, and you haven't refined the service you're giving to people. And obviously, you'll gradually learn over time where your strengths and weaknesses are, and which you can sort of hone in on those strengths and really sort of add value to clients, and that can almost become your niche, really. Again, I think you've got to think about why you started your own practice. Like for myself, for example, I was working for a local firm who are really, really good in their own right, but what I wanted to do didn't really just fit within their framework whatsoever. So my logical sort of way from that was to start my own practice and do things how I wanted to do, and sort of really put the clients first and sort of work with people to achieve a much better result.
Yeah, I love that, because it's partly about setting those realistic kind of expectations for clients, isn't it? Like right from the offset about you know, what you expect from them and what they can then expect from you back. And I love that it's always so great to hear when people have started their own practice and that they've really grasped that opportunity to do things the way that they want to do them, rather than just kind of, I don't know, maybe just going with what they already know, but actually saying, well, this is what I want my clients to expect from me, and this is what this is the way I think that I can really deliver value. So I love that. And obviously, like thinking of it from a technology point of view, I mean, obviously here at FreeAgent, like I know that you guys love FreeAgent, but there will be other accounting softwares that you use, and I'll just pretend I don't hear. And there will be other technology in your stack that you use. So what kind of influence does pricing have on that kind of tech stack that you use or you decide to take on? Chris, any thoughts on that one?
I think Suzannah mentioned it briefly earlier, but in a nutshell, really, I think we started to use Go Proposal, which is a really, really good tool. Because obviously what that does is enables you during that sort of initial sort of discovery call, as Suzannah said, or just that first sort of touch point that you have with the client. It gives you that sort of almost a walkthrough, to be honest with you. It gives you sort of, like, for example, we talked about when we started out, I used to it's so easily done that, as Suzannah mentioned, you just don't ask the right questions at the right time and things just sort of slip through the net a little bit. But using something like Go Proposal is a really good tool for just making sure that you capture some of those questions, sort of almost in the heat of the moment. The sort of conversation will be going back and forth, and you're focusing on really trying to present yourself and represent your firm in the best way possible, and sort of set out how you work. It's so easy to forget sort of like small little questions, and something like Go Proposal is a really, really good tool for just giving you the almost like the prompts to just check certain things back across. So it's almost more like a digital version of what Suzannah had mentioned, really.
Absolutely. I just saw someone in the Q&A just asking about like engagement letters, and like Go Proposal obviously does that for you, it is a brilliant piece of kit. And
the other thing it does is when you're going through that proposal, it really displays to the client exactly what's involved, and
so I was going to say,
they go from thinking, oh, you're just putting a few numbers in boxes, to seeing exactly what's involved. They're looking at the volume of transactions, and because they often just don't really realise, you know, what goes into it. And I think it really does help convey that value and the service that we're providing.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think that's the thing. It's not necessarily just about one software. So like we say, Go Proposal is a great piece of kit, but it's more about that kind of transparency with clients and being able to show them and give them that financial autonomy and understand how much goes into managing their books, because it is a big trust thing for these small businesses, isn't it? So yeah, absolutely. I think I agree. And what about other tech stacks? Like, is there any other softwares that you guys use that either in conjunction with FreeAgent or you know, maybe aside from that you feel kind of really helps you in giving that value back to clients? Suzannah, you can go ahead.
Well, I think the important thing when we're thinking about self-assessment, and particularly when we're looking at moving, getting people ready for MTD for ITSA, even though it's been delayed, the things you need to work are, you need them to be raising their sales invoices within the software, ideally. You need them to be using data capture software. So FreeAgent with the mobile app is fantastic for that. you need there to be a bank feed, and all of those things. So you obviously, one size doesn't fit all, but FreeAgent ticks a lot of those boxes for particularly for sort of small sole trader clients and kind of accidental landlords, stuff like that, and some sort of other small limited companies as well.
I think you're right. It's about making things as convenient as possible for your clients. And how do you feel about that, Chris? Like, is there any features in FreeAgent that you feel are really beneficial for your clients to do that kind of thing?
Yeah, 100%. I think that FreeAgent is the perfect sort of, following on from Suzannah, is the perfect introduction to MTD for people. I think, like, again, it's pretty much the same script really from Suzannah. It's just really a case of just getting the fundamentals right with people. What we try and do is we try and educate our clients as best as we possibly can. Member of my team, he'll give regular sort of FreeAgent tuitions to new clients and things like that absolutely brilliantly, and we just sort of set out the baseline of what people need to attain, and then if clients have got any queries, they can just contact us, and then any one of our staff can answer those queries on the phone or by email, just to try and keep the ball rolling a little bit. Because with those sort of scenarios, if it comes to, for us as a practice perspective, like we all know, self-assessment's not particularly profitable, so we need to make sure we can get the clients to on the right track from the off, and it's worth investing that time at the start to make sure that we can try and recover as much as we can at the end, rather than sort of finding ourselves with a bit of a problem sort of late on in the cycle.
And that's what I was going to ask as well, because we were thinking about self-assessment today, right? I mean, I know pricing in general, but we're thinking about self-assessment. So what are the challenges when we're thinking about those clients in particular, and trying to get them on board with software? What are the challenges that you find for them in particular? Is it price? Are they price sensitive, or is it more just convenience led? What are the kind of things that you find you struggle with those self-assessment clients in particular? Chris, I'll let you go.
I think to start with, I think we really struggle with the pricing side of things, because obviously we've got a number of clients who were needed to come onto MTD sort of preparation sort of schedule, but we were finding that our fees for them were quite low, because a number of them were sort of historical clients. I mean, we've obviously touched on that already, but where we haven't really upped their fees, and obviously we weren't recovering any profit on those clients. And then obviously we're looking into the future, and then we're having to have the discussions around MTD. There's going to be sort of 4 or 5 times the amount of work for us to do, plus the fact they'd have to then subscribe to the software. We're in a position where their sort of current investment into us was going to have to sort of go up sort of 6 or 7-fold if you were to talk it on like a time basis. And that's before you even considered they're already paying a much cheaper rate than sort of a new client or clients that you've managed to sort of raise with inflation or sort of changing services. So cost is a massive factor. And I think obviously depending where you're based as well, like for myself, obviously we're based on the Isle of Wight, obviously not the most affluent area in the world. It's quite sort of split sort of area where there's considerable amount of wealth, but then also quite the opposite in scale. There's not very much in the middle ground. So you've got to be really careful with we don't want to price people out of the market. We want to try and help our clients as much as we can. So it's about just trying to see how we can sort of tweak our services to help people as best as possible, really.
And Suzannah, you're going through this at the moment, aren't you? Like a bit of a pricing evolution. How are you happy to give us a little bit of background on that and tell us how you're finding it? Because I think that's something that people struggle with, isn't it? Kind of changing their pricing structure or fitting it for their client base. But how are you finding it through all of that?
It is a challenge. The way I started early with trying to get my clients onto software in time for MTD before it was delayed. So my plan was to get everyone onto software for April 23, and I have done that already for most of them. But there are still a few stragglers who, you know, people are quite if you've got someone who's business for years and years and years, they don't want to change the way they do things, but at the same time they really stress out at year end, getting everything together, finding all their receipts. They've lost bits of paperwork, they can't remember what that transaction was on their bank statement, and things like that, and they are quite frightened of technology and the idea of being on software and doing their sales invoices on something other than Word. So I kind of, for my existing clients, I did a free onboarding session to FreeAgent. I do charge for that for new clients, but for the existing clients, that's what I did. and showed them how to do their sales invoices, and start off sort of slowly by saying, that's all I want you to do at the beginning. Do that, hook the bank feed up. Some of them didn't even have a separate business bank account. So it was really great to be able to say, well, if you open a metal business bank account for free, you then get FreeAgent for free. Yeah. And it's kind of then becomes a no-brainer, because whilst they're scared of using software and they know that it's coming, that they've got to do this for MTD, and you can ease them into it gently. And then sort of moving to monthly bookkeeping, you can kind of say, well, because I'm doing this monthly now, you are going to need to pay monthly. Mm-hmm. And then it helps to sort of then, and you're kind of gradually putting up the fee. But what I've found as well is, because they've realised how much easier it is using something like FreeAgent, taking their photos of their receipts on the mobile app. They've got the bank feed connected, so everything's going through. They can do their sales invoices, they can send them, they can set up chasers, they know who owes them what at a glance. Because they've got that improved visibility, they can see that already the service that they're getting has really improved, and they know that they're going to have to pay for that. And yet, obviously, the FreeAgent part of it is actually coming for free. Mm-hmm. So, and I guess, but it also increases the touch points, and you're having more conversations with them, so they can see that there's an improvement in service.
I guess that's part.
But it is a challenge.
I guess that's part of the thing for you as well, as the accountant or bookkeeper. You actually almost have to be a bit of an educator as well about, getting them on software, and why it's important that you can see everything that's going on, with their finances, and why that business bank account is so important to keep separate from your personal. And that can be a challenge, I imagine. I agree that I think so much of it is just about, I always say, if you're starting to implement FreeAgent into your small business, just all you have to do is set up a bank feed and download the mobile app, and that is the only thing you need to do for the foreseeable future. And then you just drip feed information, and then it becomes a little bit easier, you hope. Yeah. I mean, it's not going to be the same with every client, of course. And
you can tailor it. I mean, I've got some clients who I've got onto FreeAgent, but they're still not doing their sales invoices on there yet. But I'm saying to them, send me the copies every month and I'll put them on. It only take a minute or whatever. And you can kind of build up to it. And then once you can show them how to do it, and they see how easy it is. And I always say, if you can take a photo on your phone, you can do some of these other things. I'm not asking you to do the bookkeeping and the categorizing or anything like that at this stage, but you can do those bits.
The bare minimum.
And you spot things quickly as well. You can. I mean, I've got one of my CIS subbies. He'd had the wrong deductions had been made for him, and I spotted that in the month that it happened. That straight away. Whereas I might not have spotted that till, I don't know, 20 months down the line if he was bringing it to me in December, January, and then it's much harder to sort out. So they are seeing an increased service and value, and you can justify the pricing that goes with that.
Definitely. And I guess that's part of the thing about having such a close kind of relationship with your clients, because obviously the more that they trust you, then the more that you can encourage them to implement these really good practices. But how do you find it communicating that kind of, I like to call it like a superpower, like that close relationship building? But Chris, how do you find that? Like, how do you find building that trust with clients, and what are some steps that you can take to encourage others to do the same?
I know that I think you've got to try and set out what sort of client you want to attain, because we'll go back to when you first start, sort of you are sort of susceptible to just taking every client that comes along. Mm-hmm. I think you can come and always sort of set your own narrative by ensuring that you provide really good service for your sort of initial clients, and stop asking for things like Google reviews. And if you get the people that you provide a really good service to give you good Google reviews, obviously it sets that precedent really. So when people will look for you, obviously the majority of people will look online for a new accountant if they're experiencing problems with a current accountant, or if they're setting out in business. It's a really key component of any new business as well. And obviously we've always worked on the basis that we will invest the time into our clients to provide like the best possible service, and then in turn those clients will then spread word of mouth really on our services, and that's always served us really, really well.
Yeah, because you've built a big client base excuse me, off of a lot of word of mouth in your area, haven't you?
Yeah, that's 100% right. Yeah, so it's basically just a case of we stuck to the core beliefs that we had from the start of just trying to make sure that every business that we worked with, we gave it our absolute all and put everything into it, really take the time to understand their business and sort of help them take that business forward. That in turn, much like what Suzannah was saying about sort of helping people and educating them, that will just give people that confidence in you, and sort of you've built that value with them then, and then they'll just sing their praises to sort of when they go to networking events or if their clients and people they deal with in business. And gradually that will just build and build. And obviously that's just in the background, it's just building that sort of that brand, or that sort of how your business is represented from the outside.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And I think that your own personal brand, like the way that you deal with clients, the way that you come across to others, plays such a big role in that, which yeah, couldn't agree more. So let's talk about price sensitive clients a little bit. I know we've touched on it some, but you know, obviously when we're thinking about clients that are really price sensitive, so maybe they're startups or they're just I don't know, they could be price sensitive for a lot of reasons, right? But how do you keep your quality of service really high? I mean, Chris, obviously you've got staff, Suzannah, you don't, so we'd love to hear both perspectives on this. But how do you keep that quality of service really high without charging kind of through the roof for what you're offering? I know we've maybe kind of covered it a little bit, but let's go to you, Chris, first, in terms of because you've got staff, I'd love to hear about how you do that, how you manage offering those services and not you know, still being an affordable option for small businesses.
Yeah, I think what you've got to do is obviously is a multitude of factors, but obviously with the technology available to us all now with FreeAgent, and depending on if you're using accounts production software like TaxFiler or Iris or anything of that nature, just make use of that software. And obviously we just believe wholly in making sure that our staff in-house are the highest trained on all the sort of all elements of our tech stack, really, so that basically if you can utilize what you've got in-house, it will enable you to do the work a lot quicker. So obviously we're not looking to charge people any more than they need to pay. Obviously I know we need to make a profit, but ultimately we're always trying to look to provide the best value to clients while sort of meeting our own needs as well. So if we can sort of put that sort of culture into our staff of how to sort of review the jobs as they're going, and sort of be time conscious to a degree, but whilst giving it their sort of 110% best. It's just that sort of, and then again, from my perspective as the director, to sort of make sure that we're allocating the work correctly to the right staff, so that suits that skill set of the staff member in question, because then obviously you'll see the best result for the client and for the business as well.
And Suzannah, what about you? Because you're on your own, you're a one-woman band here. So how does that kind of compare to what Chris is saying?
Similarity in that use the technology that's out there, keep on top of all the changes, and you know, it's evolving all the time, and there's so much you can do with technology to leverage your time, so that you can then spend that time communicating with clients and keeping that kind of relationship going. I mean, I always say to my clients that I don't want to just hear from them once a year. I want to hear from them throughout the year. I want them to come to me if they've got a decision to make, like if they want to buy a van, or if they want to do, I don't know, take on a member of staff, and by providing that service where we're up to date with the bookkeeping throughout the year, we can give them that information they need and help them to make that decision. And if you're using the technology correctly, you know, you're able to do that without it costing you a fortune.
I guess that's the thing, is there's a lot of there's obviously loads of learning opportunities. I mean, we've got like 300 people on this webinar today who are here to learn from others in the industry, and then you've got events like Accountex or the ICB Summit later this year, where there's lots of learning opportunities. And I think what I see a lot of, or what I saw a lot of when I was an account manager, was that it's sometimes people find it hard to find the time to invest in their own learning. But do you think that that's been something that's really been beneficial for you, Suzannah? Do you think that that's something you aim to continue to do throughout?
Definitely. And you need to be pricing correctly to be able to do that, to be able to spend the time and the money on going to things like Accountex or going on webinars, like that. But it shows in the service that you're then able to provide to your clients, and giving them sort of regular updates on legislation changes that might affect them, and so they've got that constant communication coming through, and they trust you, and they know that you're on it for them, and that you're looking at things for them.
Absolutely. And Chris, I already know that you put a huge focus on learning for your practice and for your employees. How do you make sure that they have the time? Do you just make it a no-brainer that there just has to be time for learning opportunities? How do you make sure you work that into the kind of business as usual?
I think you've got to see that the staff and what we're able to sort of deliver to clients, that's the most important thing. We've got to make sure that we've got all the tools and we're making use of all the tools possible. So we'll always look to try and give our staff the time they need to make sure they're on the top of their game with all sort of aspects of their work, whether it be sort of training, if they're training using through to AAT level or ACCA, that sort of direct training for qualifications, albeit training through software. Obviously, like FreeAgent, if working towards all of the training modules on the practice portal and things like that. So that's really key, because obviously if people aren't necessarily up to date with those things, they might not be abreast of all the changes that are happening. So there are quite a lot of developments that go on within FreeAgent, and obviously we're sort of portraying ourselves to our clients as sort of their sort of shining light, the expert. And if we're not able to deliver for them, then obviously we're letting ourselves down, and we're letting the client down as well.
Absolutely. And there's that responsibility to your industry as well to kind of give back and make sure that you're doing all the right things. So yeah, absolutely. And then let's think about your own practice. So like I say, slightly different perspective, because obviously you're both running your own practice. Suzannah, solo, which sounds really tough to me. I mean, I work from home and I find that hard enough. And then Chris, obviously you've got employees and things as well. So when we're thinking about the current economic climate, so costs are kind of rising all over the UK, we're thinking about inflation and all of that. How do you take steps to future-proof your own practice, and what are you doing to kind of make sure that you're protected as well? Because you've got a responsibility to your clients, but also to your own firm. Suzannah, do you want to kick us off?
Okay, so yeah, going back to it, kind of covers what I said before. You need to be pricing your services correctly, because if you're drowning in work from clients paying low fees, it's a downward spiral, and you're not going to be able to offer that quality service, which is what makes you stand out in the first place. So you need to charge well to have the time and resource to offer that quality service. You need to be able to go to things like Accountex and stuff, and invest in the technology to help you. The other thing I think that's really valuable in future-proofing your practice is having a really good network of bookkeepers and accountants around you, because you can share advice and information, you support each other. It's all about collaboration, bouncing ideas off each other. So those things really help as well.
Absolutely. That community, I think, personally, I feel that community is so important for learning opportunities and the practical side of things, but also for your mental health, for your I don't know, just again, it's that responsibility to the industry that I think you because you're FreeAgent partners and you're obviously brilliant, you obviously provide. But that community, and you find that community, I'm assuming places like ICB, through the softwares you use, which I always love to hear about as well. And Chris, what about you? What do you think about kind of future-proofing your practice? How do you, within pricing or out with pricing, how can you make sure that you're kind of doing and protecting yourself?
Sorry, there's a few things. I mean, you've got to really sort of, we take the time to sort of educate our staff to sort of pick up on things, and sort of, as the jobs are being carried out, sort of almost evaluate what the fee structure is like at that point, so that we're trying to take a full, obviously we're the sort of practice where stereotypical accountants that have grown over a period of time, and there's a large percentage of our clients that have never had their fees touched since the day they joined us. We're not a practice who sort of change their fees annually. We look to set our fees in place with our clients so they know what they're going to expect sort of costings wise and things like that. So it's just a case of, unfortunately, because obviously that you've mentioned the economic climate and things like that, we're now having to go through and review all those clients' fees in turn. Obviously, what we've tried to avoid doing is a blanket X percentage across all fees, because see, there's an awful number of our clients that we're making what I would say a good return on already. They're really good clients. We've got a really good flow both ways of information. It's already a profitable client. There's absolutely no need to mess with the fees on some of those clients. So what we're trying to do is take the time to sort of break our client base down into sort of multiple sections and really work with the ones at the lower end first. Because obviously, if you're making a large loss on some of these clients, or you're not sort of getting back what you should be, it's much better to sort of evaluate those ones first, spend the time trying to bring those fees up. And for any reason, if those people won't come along for the ride, and obviously they'll go somewhere else, brilliant, that's freed up some time for you to invest in your other clients and make those more profitable. So I think that's the most, just start with the biggest loss-making clients really and work your way up from there.
Yeah.
Going to be an awful number of clients, like I say, that you are making a good return on already, and it just seems silly to start with those guys. If you're going to try and put the price up on an already profitable job, you could risk putting into jeopardy a really good relationship you've already got with a client.
Mm-hmm. And I can see people in the chat box chatting about kind of fixed fees, but what I'm actually hearing from both of you really is that actually a bespoke approach is more what you would champion in, and like there's a huge human element of that as well, isn't there, about kind of being aware of what people can actually afford and being aware of what you can afford to do in-house. Would you agree with that kind of bespoke approach has served you better, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, well, obviously what we try to do is it is kind of fixed fees, but what we look to do is give people a fixed cost rather than we don't fix fees across the board. So all of our quotes are bespoke for each client, but they are almost like a fixed price. So like what we quote to someone or through a proposal will be that price. We don't then, even if we've had this before where we've kind of slightly underestimated the level of work involved in a job, because like Suzannah says, people always come in and they'll always paint you the prettiest picture in the world, and you obviously trying to do the right thing for everyone to add value to that client, and massively sort of underpriced it. When you come to do the work and you found out there's an awful lot more to it, we're not the sort of firm that at the end will say, well, actually we've said it was going to be X number of pounds, but reality was we spent a lot more time on it, so here's a bill for X plus Y. That's not how we work. So we'll always quote what we've said we will. And then if it needs to be reevaluated, we'll have the conversation with the client after that and sit down with them and just sort of have that sort of face-to-face contact or on the phone and just say, look, what we've found from doing this work is that we can't actually provide that for you. Going forward, it's going to have to be this value. And that's always sort of served us quite well. But like I say, it isn't just a case of, oh, if you'd like a tax return done, all of our tax returns are X pounds. I don't think you can really work like that, because every client is so fundamentally different, and we'll have the demands and needs of every client and every business is just so varied.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And what do you think about that, Suzannah? Is that kind of, well, like I say, you're going through this kind of pricing, not change, but you're reevaluating things in-house, aren't you? So what do you think about that kind of that approach?
Totally agree with Chris, and I put sort of kind of incentivizing factors in as well in my pricing and proposals, where I will do them. It will be discounted or the price increased if they're not providing paperwork on time, or if there's lots of paperwork missing that I'm having to constantly chase and stuff like that. So I'm incentivizing the behavior that I want from the clients, which will make my job easier and ultimately their lives easier as well. So you do have to tailor. I mean, it's fixed pricing, but it is very much bespoke per client, and you can offer them extra services and they don't have to take them up. Mm-hmm. You know, you explain the value of those, and if they're not ready for those, you can roadmap them. Or you can, if it's getting too expensive, you can say, well, how about you do this bit and I'll, you know, or whatever, and you can then sort of drop the price slightly for that. But absolutely, you have to keep it in line with the work, so you can't just give them a discount for nothing.
I'm all for incentivizing clients to do the right things, and I suppose it probably brings me on to what's going to be my last question before I just run through any of the Q&A that have come in. But what would be, and this is me going a little bit off piece here, so apologies, but what would be kind of your number one piece of advice for someone going into self-assessment season? Chris, I'll let you kick us off. If there's any, just something that comes to mind that you would say. Just
really be prepared. Just take the time to sort of make sure you can try and get the information requests out to your clients really nice and early. What you don't want to be doing is sort of leaving everything till the last minute. Try not to dig your head in the sand. Just make sure that you can be as prepared as you can, sort of have those meetings with your team if you've got staff, try and educate people on the importance of when they speak to clients to try and use those touch points just to sort of rejig people's sort of thoughts on getting records into you, and just making sure the quicker that you can get the records into you, the quicker you can plan in the work and get it done. Ultimately, none of us wants to be sat here in sort of January with multiple hundreds of tax returns to do, say, for example. So the quicker that you can get all those done, again, it's just planning and preparation, dealing with clients and trying to educate them as to why you do need that information at this time rather than in January, because HMRC don't need it to be filed till January.
Susanna, what about you?
Exactly that, and just to say that, you know, using accounting software like FreeAgent or whatever with a bank feed hooked up, and where they're using their mobile app to take the photos of the receipts and everything, that is making it so much easier, because you've already done all the bookkeeping, or the client has already done the bookkeeping ongoing, so you can start looking at it and have a pretty good idea in April, you know, well in advance, and it just makes it so much easier to manage the workload then, because like you say, there's just nothing worse than December and January being wiped out with self-assessments.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. Thank you both for those. Were kind of all my questions, but we have had a couple of questions come in from our audience today. Thank you so much. I love to see these questions coming in. One from Rahi here: when starting out, what software did you use for filing self-assessments, and what software do you use now? Chris, do you want to go ahead with that one? Because I know that you use, is it Tax Filer?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we've used Tax Filer pretty much since the get-go. I think it's really, really good. It's really worked as we've scaled our practice. It's sort of come with us along the journey, really. Obviously I'm not here to sell Tax Filer, but obviously there's really good sort of plans for people. If you're just starting out, you can sort of build up to, it's not particularly costly at any point, really, truthfully. But it does give you that really good start. And obviously the software is exactly the same, whether or not you've got 10 clients or if you've got 500 clients. And it's a really, really good piece of software that links, obviously, you can link it up to bookkeeping software, obviously sends everything off to HMRC, and it creates a really good basis of information for you as well.
And you can file through FreeAgent as well if you want to. So I'll just point that out as well. But yes, you're right, we do have integrations set up. If you ever want to check out our integrations page, you can see who we link up with as well. And Susanna, this one I'm going to put to you. Howard said, I would love to see, I would see value to clients with something like reminding them they had to purchase assets prior to 31st of March to get extra allowance. How would you price for something like that? I guess this comes under the kind of overall advisory side of things, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really price any additional for that. I would be including in my pricing to have regular conversations and communication with clients anyway. So that would be within that, I think. But yeah, it's definitely something that I do.
I guess for your incentives, like you say, that's more those kind of discounts maybe are more, so it's not necessarily pricing for something, but it's taking money off for good behavior.
Yeah. And obviously you could, like you say, you can say to them, well, it's too late now because the year end has gone. But if you'd have had all your information in earlier and been talking to me earlier, we could have taken advantage of whatever, of the super deduction or something. But yeah, definitely it's all part of having that regular communication.
Yeah. So I can also see people saying you can't get a new license with Tax Filer anymore. Not to worry, there's loads of good products on the market. We are extremely well served in the fintech industry. We have like an incredibly well served market for tax filing products, payment solutions, payroll, all of that. So I mean, it comes back to what we're saying about learning, but there's loads of information out there. I know that it can feel overwhelming for anyone watching this, and I know that it's sometimes hard to make the right decisions on software. Trust me, talk to people about this all day, every day. However, there's a solution out there that's right for you and right for your clients. It might take a little bit of digging. If in doubt, I'm such a huge advocate for talking to your software provider. They should be giving you an account manager who speaks to you, who can talk to you about what's available. And if you don't know who your account manager is, I encourage you to ring them up and tell them you want to have a chat with them, because that is what we're here for. We are here to help accountants and bookkeepers implement best processes. It's never about saying I want everyone to go on FreeAgent. It's about saying want your clients to do the right thing for you. So yeah. So I can't see any more major questions coming in. It looks like the chat has been popping off, which I love to see. So I guess the last thing for me is just, we're going to go into a demo just now, but I just wanted to thank you both so much for your time, for all of your insight. It's been brilliant. Thank you so much. And yeah, that's it really for me. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, guys. For anyone that's still around and you want to stick around, then please do. I'm just going to do a short demo of FreeAgent. First of all, I'm just going to launch our last poll. So if you are popping off before the demo, then please, if you would like us to get back in touch about becoming a FreeAgent partner, then go ahead and let us know. And for now, I'll just say thank you to Suzannah and Chris. Like I say, you're welcome to stay for the demo if you want, but you are FreeAgent experts, so you don't need to. But thank you so much for your time. And yeah, I will see you both again soon, I'm sure.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye then. Bye.
Thanks. So everyone, if you're still sticking around, like I say, I'm going to do a short demo of FreeAgent. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to get my screen ready whilst you all reply to our poll. Lovely to see that there's plenty of you sticking around. This will be a pretty light touch demo, to be honest with you. But we're just going to take you through FreeAgent from accountant and bookkeeper's perspective. If you do decide that you want to go ahead and get a trial or become a partner, just say yes please to our poll and we will get in touch. Cool, so I'm just going to go ahead and end that poll now, and I will share my screen. Perfect. Gonna assume that everyone can see it, no bother. If you can't, then I'm sure someone's gonna let me know by shouting at me, which is fine. So everyone, welcome to FreeAgent from our practice dashboard. So if you do decide that you want to become a FreeAgent partner, or you just want to try out the software, when you log in, this is what you're going to see. We know that we're in our practice dashboard because we've got that lovely green banner at the top there. And this is where you can centrally manage all your FreeAgent clients. So as you can see, I've got all my clients here, and then all the clients at my demo practice. So if we head into the My Clients section, this is where you're going to be able to find all of your information about the account managers on the software, as well as some reporting. We've also got access to our practice portal here, which is lovely to see. It's got a bunch of resources, videos, webinar recordings available for you. So when we're talking about expanding your learning, that is the place to go if you want to find out more about the industry as a whole or about FreeAgent. For now, what we're going to do is we're just going to go into a client account. So I've got this one at the bottom here, Tradesman & Co. I'm just going to go ahead and hit switch to. And this is the end user view of our product. So we know that we're in the end user side of things because it's got that lovely blue banner at the top. Like I say, it's going to be a relatively light touch, but as you can see just on our page, at our homepage, we've got a little cash flow here. Unfortunately, this business doesn't seem to be doing very well, but never mind. We've also got our unique tax timeline, which we've recently made some big improvements to, which is lovely to see. And it's just going to give your clients a little bit more financial autonomy over what's going on with their tax. So we've got some information about when VAT returns are due, etc., which is lovely to see. Similar to other softwares, you will have access to things like contacts, work where you can do your invoicing, you can manage projects, for example, send estimates as well. We've also got bills up here. And then if we go into My Money, we've got everything from payrolls, dividends, salaries, etc. I'm going to come back to banking in just a few minutes, but if we carry on going along the top of our banner here, we've got information about taxes. So you've got your self-assessment, VAT, corp tax as well. And like I say, you can do your filings from within the software. So for all your small businesses, that's where you're going to be able to submit directly to HMRC from FreeAgent. If we go along to accounting, then we've also got our reports as well. So I'll just head into reports to show you, but nothing wild here. We've got our bank rec, audit trail, P&L, all the usual suspects here in our reporting side of things. When I head back to the overview page, I just want to draw your attention to the quick links up here. These are even easier to use when you're in our mobile app, which is award-winning, by the way. You can do all your new invoices, new projects, etc. from that green button, which is lovely to see. Just makes it really easy for your clients who might not be used to using an accounting software. They might not really feel that they can do it. This is super friendly and easy to use. I know nothing really about accounting. I know a lot about accounting software, but I am definitely not an accountant, and I can use FreeAgent, so I guarantee your clients will as well. Last thing I want to cover off today is just our banking. So this is really kind of the beating heart of FreeAgent, we like to call it. So got our cash flow, but what I'm going to do is head into bank accounts here. When we go into our business bank account, we are able to just see, we use a traffic lighting system. So all those lovely green transactions have been explained, and our really clever AI tools are going to categorize them for us. It gets transactions right about 90% of the time. It's very clever. But for example, if I've got something like Amazon coming up on my bank statements and I want to exclude that from being automatically categorized, because you might get a bunch of things from Amazon, it might not fit into one category, I can just exclude that from the terms, which is fine. We've got a red one here, and that means that this bank transaction has not been explained. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head into here, and I can attach it to an invoice. It'll try to show me ones that match the amount. Obviously, there isn't one that matches this amount, so I'm not going to do it today. But it's super easy to just explain these bank transactions. We can upload files, so we can upload our receipts, which are saved in our files area as well, which you can find at the top right here. And almost all of this can be done from the mobile app. The mobile app can probably do about 90% of what your clients want to do straight from their phone, which we love to see, just because, again, we want to make it as easy as possible for you and your clients to use the software. And it's all about implementing good behaviors for your clients. So the easier the software is to use, the more keen they are to wake up every day and take pictures of their receipts on the go. And it gives you, as the accountant, a little bit more visibility over what they've got going on in their business. Like I say, very light touch for us today on the product. You can see we've got some alerts here. So payslip notifications is just recently something that we've introduced. So when we send payslips, then your clients will get an email to the employees with a link to view it in the software. That's all I'm going to cover today on the demo. Lovely to have you all here. Thank you so much. Any questions that we've not answered, I do apologise if we've just not managed to get around to it, or maybe we've missed them today. There will be a recording of the webinar sent out, not to worry. And yeah, thank you all so much. I wonder, Georgia, if there's one more poll, if in case anyone, now that they've seen the product, they want to go ahead and get a follow-up. But we will be following up with a webinar recording for you all, and hope to see you at the next one. If you would like us to get in touch, just go ahead and click yes, please. Perfect. Thank you all so much for joining. I'm just going to go ahead and end that poll. And like I say, it was lovely to have you all. Hope you have a great week. And yeah, see you on the next one.